Hello, I'm Robert. Welcome to my channel where I fact check things that scare you and also looking at things that are positive and promising that are happening in the future, that are promising for the future. And this time it's really rather exciting news from Israel, and this is a glimpse of where the rest of us could be headed. And so this is, by vaccinating most of the adults, this is what happened with the previous the second wave. You see it increased. This is the R naught. So just a reminder, probably most of you know now, but for those that don't, then the let's just get me out my picture out of the way. Right. So this R naught is about how infectious it is, and if it's 1.2, that means that if you start off with 10 people, then it infect 12, and then they'd infect more again, and the numbers would go up and up and up, and you're out of control, and that's going to rise very high. And then if your number is below 1, like 0.62, that means 100 infect 62, then infect less than 2/3 of that, and that will go down and down and down, and that will be very quickly over for any outbreak that gets started. So if you have had an outbreak of 100, then after a few infections it'll be gone. Whereas if you have an outbreak of 100, it'll go 120, and then be more than 140, it'll just go up and up and up. So in the first pandemic, then it started off quite well in control. The first the second wave in Israel, it started off reasonably in control, but then it got more and more out of control. And once it goes up there, it goes more and more and more out of control. It's harder and harder to control it as the numbers go up, as the number of people infected go up. And this time, then this seems to be likely to be the effect of vaccination. Then it was starting to go up just like the last time, but then just above 1, and then you'd expect to keep on going up and up and up like before. Instead, it started coming down and down and down. It's gone down to 0.62, and this seems very clear evidence that the vaccine is stopping transmission in real life. And there is independently, they're using the Pfizer vaccine, and this is after the second dose, and then an extra, I think 10 days or whatever it is after the second dose of the Pfizer, which is the most effective vaccine found so far. Then Israel, they've achieved 94, if previously where you would have had 100, like that 100, you would now have only 3 people show symptoms, and only 6, even including the asymptomatic people. So if everyone was vaccinated, and the R naught originally was 1, if you managed to get it to 1, if you were, say, at this point, then you were to instantly vaccinate everyone, then 100 people would then only infect 6, and then they would only infect, well, much less than 1 after that, and it would be over in just 2 jumps like that. So it would be, so the combination of vaccinating plus reducing the R naught through other health measures could end a pandemic very, very fast indeed. If you could vaccinate everyone so for instance, you had a super spreader event, and then you could vaccinate everyone in that region with a 94% effective vaccine, then it would be over probably in days or weeks, a week or 2, and just be completely over. That's incredibly effective. So it's not quite so fast if you're not doing the health measures. That's why it's so important to do the health measures as well. And this is an analogy I do. I'll bring that up again. So move me up there. So this shows what it's like. This shows when if you have your best health response. This you've got a weaker one. So a weaker one, like what Israel has without the vaccine, then there will be some holes. There'll be some things maybe. So in this analogy, like the eyes and nose are protected with this not so effective armour, and there's a big hole in there, which it was actually a thing to just put it to hang it up. Someone banged through it, not to hang it up in some stately hole or something. But if you had a hole like that, then that would be just a mistake, not a problem in the construction of the armour, but in your response. So in Israel, obviously, they didn't have an effective response as New Zealand or Australia or China, Taiwan, Vietnam, who managed to stop it just with health measures. They had like this, without a vaccine. But Israel, by adding a vaccine to what it's doing already, has now got the cases going down, where otherwise it would be going up, and going down quite fast. And they bear in mind that Israel, they have not vaccinated the children yet. We don't yet have the clinical trials finished for children. It's expected to be absolutely fine for children, but they haven't vaccinated them yet. So there will still be transmission through the children, and then they haven't vaccinated the Palestinians, who are quite a large minority in Israel. And the Palestinians in the West Bank, they are being vaccinated mainly through COVAX, apart from the ones who are working for Israeli companies, and they are getting vaccinated. But the rest of the Palestinians aren't. And you get hospitals where some people, the Jews are vaccinated, the Israelis aren't. The Palestinians aren't. The Israelis are and the Palestinians aren't. So, and even like the health workers not being vaccinated if they're Palestinian. So it's very inequitable, great unequal. It's just a microcosm of what we've got in the entire world, where wealthy countries are fully vaccinated, while health workers are dying in the countries that haven't even got vaccines yet. And Israel is like a microcosm of that. And it's a microcosm of the effect of that, because by not vaccinating the Palestinians, then this means they've got Palestinians amongst them who've got the virus, amongst the Israelis who are vaccinated. So they've still got these, that's another hole in their armour. All the Palestinians in the West Bank are like a hole in the Israeli armour, because they've got the viruses circulating amongst them. So the cases will be falling much slower in Israel because of the non-vaccinated Palestinians. And yet they've still achieved this. So with all these disadvantages, that they're not vaccinating the Palestinians, who are being vaccinated much more slowly, unless they work for Israeli companies, and they are not vaccinating the children until we get the results for the children, and yet still you've got the R naught way down. So what will it be like once we have a much fuller coverage of vaccination? And the other thing to bear in mind is that Pfizer is a first generation vaccine. So what is it going to be like? There are many ideas they've got for making the vaccines more effective. And as for the variants, then it's quite easy to keep ahead of the variants, as long as we don't have too many. With the next dose, then they will probably do like they do with flu vaccines. They're already working on this, to have they can very quickly change the spike, especially for Pfizer. And the new modifications for Pfizer will mean that if they incorporate the hexapro variation as to how to stabilize the Pfizer spike, then they should be able to store the Pfizer at normal fridge temperatures like AstraZeneca. That will make a huge difference. So there are many things coming along in the near future, like maybe towards the end of 2021, if we haven't already eliminated it in other ways from most of the world. So it's not impossible, but if we actually go into it now. So I'm going to go into that. So do I go into that in this video, or shall I talk about it more? Yes, no, I talk about it in a separate video, so I'm going to talk about that as a separate thing. But so remember that this is very, very promising news for the rest of the world. It's showing very exciting news from Israel. That it really does show we can eliminate this. If the R naught stays below 1, and you keep it below 1, and this shows you can do it with just a vaccine and with not that good public health measures, then you eliminate it. And it doesn't matter if you keep the R naught below 1 by using just a vaccine, as is the normal way of doing it, or you keep the R naught below 1 by using public health measures, which is how New Zealand did it, or if you keep the R naught below 1 with a combination of the two, then mathematically it doesn't make any difference. One way or another, your virus will be eliminated from your country. So we can see the way forward here. That given this results, exciting news from Israel, I don't see how we are not going to eliminate it, especially once we get to second and third generation vaccines, which will be better than Pfizer. So we could eliminate it 2021 to 2022 for most of the world. It could be eradicated in 2022. I really don't see why it can't be eradicated from the world. Anyway, we will see. But it's best to focus on elimination at this point, because it's become very politically charged to say that you think it can be eradicated. But elimination is less scary for people because they know that you eliminate measles, you eliminate it. But it should be scary, it should be very hopeful and positive, but they find the idea difficult to stomach. But we can eliminate it from one country after another, and this shows that we can do it.